Okay, it says preparing. Okay, we are live on Facebook. I think we got it this time. Beautiful. Welcome, beautiful beings, to the Power of Love Summit, transforming self and society through love and compassion. So glad you're here. My name is Brittany Tackett. I am a transpersonal coach, yoga and meditation teacher and writer, and I'm the founder of Heart First Education, whose mission is to educate the whole person, heart first. So I started this organization after working as a mental health therapist in public schools. And I realized that there was a disparity in the way we educate, that we focus really heavily on the mind and the intellect and not nearly enough on emotional intelligence and matters of the heart. And that's sort of what prompted me to do this summit too. I really wanted to bring together heart-centered leaders and coaches and teachers, healers, people from all over that are centered in their hearts and help others to anchor in as well. So today I have Greg Biggs. Thank you so much for being here, Greg. I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us about you and the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so beautiful just looking at the lineup that you found and all of the topics that you're covering, and more so the mission that you are bringing to light. I think this is, especially now, more than any other time, this is the most important thing.
Uh-oh, Greg, I cannot hear you. I'm not sure what happened. It was quiet and then it went completely out.
How about now?
Yes, now it's
Amazing. Yes. So I was just saying, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I think right now, more than ever, this is, and your mission is exactly what the world needs. So I want to thank you for that. My name is Greg Biggs, and I help spiritual coaches create and scale their heart-centered businesses to six figures. And the way that we do that is by balancing the masculine and feminine energies together so that they can create deep and lasting transformation in their clients, serve their soul's purpose, and truly just live abundantly in all ways.
I love that. That's a wonderful mission. I imagine you get to work with a lot of amazing people with really amazing missions as well. So it's really beautiful to be able to help facilitate that for them.
Thank you. Yeah, it's true. It's so cool to witness just that gentle shift where we realize that like business is can and is intuitive as much as there are these systems and things that are in place, and being able to balance those two and really just like kind of like what we're talking about here is just come back to the heart space and own from that place is what truly like helps to elevate people to that next level. And just to see the ripple effect of that like coming out into the world is just so profound.
Yes, I agree. And so our topic today, I loved your topic, the wisdom of the heart and how we create these powerful and deep, lasting relationships. Tell us more about what you mean by the wisdom of the heart and how we tune into our heart's wisdom.
Beautiful. It's so fascinating because really starting to understand the heart like started my entire journey. And there was just this time where I was so curious about life, about the meaning of life and all of these kind of bigger pictures. And of course, very naturally, dreams became very interesting. The topics of astral projection and healing work were so big. And even as a kid, I would find these books that were talking about healing, and they're like the best healing comes from the heart and through the heart. And I never really quite understood what that meant. And so it kind of brought me on this whole journey of discovering, like, is the heart a different place than where I'm living now? Like, how do I start to differentiate the two? And one of the most fascinating things that I found was that when we started to look at the heart was actually the the most like ancient part of us. It was the first thing that was created in birth. And so I just imagine this very beautiful like womb space, and through this cosmic unveiling, life happens. And the very first thing is the heart. And I found that so interesting because we've often heard that we have three brains, right? Our mind, our heart, and our gut. And what I found was so cool was that inside of the heart, they've actually measured and found gray matter. And this gray matter, the same as our brain that helps us to think, is so prevalent inside of the heart. And in fact, there's a certain place inside of the heart that in a surgery, in a heart surgery, if a surgeon cuts into this particular space inside of the heart, that's the only spot that if they touch, the patient dies immediately. And this is the biggest conglomerate of these beautiful gray matter pieces. And so I started to think is there's actually a very big difference of like thinking from the heart and from the mind is like it's using a completely different organ, a different sense. And this just kind of really helped me to tap into this idea of what unity really means, right? Is our brains are very beautifully divided into duality with a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, but our hearts are completely whole. And this is what I found was so interesting is like that wholeness inside of the heart is the place where we're not thinking of us versus them. We're not thinking of good and bad. We're not thinking of any of that. We're thinking of what is the most like perfect way that I can express myself, can help, can serve, can heal, can give in a way that everybody wins. And it's the place that I've found for myself that if I can tap back into that like prime source, that it's almost like a doorway to the collective consciousness, this place where all of a sudden it's just like download after download and insight after insight exactly as I need it. And it's so beautiful because it truly puts a whole new spin on things to live heart first, right? It's like coming from that place and going out into the world and just like consciously allowing yourself to be thinking from the heart, allowing yourself to be living from this beautiful, safe place inside of your chest allows you to just be in the moment, so present, not thinking about what the future is going to hold or reminiscing on the past. It's true presence in the here, in the now, in the feelings, in your body, and in the interconnection with everybody and everything around you. And this unlocked every single door going into healing, going into relationships, going into business later on in life, going into everything. And this is like the true wisdom. And it's so cool because the first thing that comes out of the heart is actually the tongue. And this is like a weird thing, but the tongue sprouts and it connects directly to your heart, which is why babies, anytime they see something new, immediately their tongue goes out and they want to put it in their mouth because the tongue will actually give you instant learning. It's almost like an instant download. And so the weird part about this is I could hold up anything, this speaker, for example. And if I said, can you imagine what this tastes like? You can actually kind of taste it instantly. And it's from that like baby learning experience that unfolds. And so there's not this like learn, read, regurgitate need for learning. When we come back to our heart, there's this very instant place of knowing. And that's the wisdom that I'm talking about here, is the wisdom that transcends books, that transcends movies and teachers and everything, is that deep inner knowing of what we're here for, how we're here to serve, what our gifts are, and what really lights us up and how we can share that with others.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And really, that's what life is all about. Like our deepest meaning that we find in our life and the most profound relationships, connections, the work we do, if it's coming from our heart, it's just so much more profound. There's so much more to it. You know, we have all of this to offer, but so often we do get stuck in our heads. So what you said about the relationships, like how can the wisdom of our heart deepen our relationships? How do you see that for people and to make them last? I know that was part of our title for this.
Yeah, definitely. It's so cool because the heart creates this electromagnetic field, right? That permeates around us. Um, we can look at it as our aura or as something that's feeding our aura, but in truth, this field that's coming out is that part that allows us to connect with others. And it's that moment when you're inside of that other sphere, and even specifically talking about like a partnership or relationship, is that moment where you either know uh, if that person is a connection to you, if that person is like what you're looking for, that like other half, or that person that you're wanting to like adventure with. Being inside of that space and connecting with those two spaces allows you to know on a deeper level than thoughts that there's this harmony. And I
Mhm.
think that's important because inside of our minds, sometimes we get caught up in the what if they don't like me? Or what if they see this flaw and they find out this thing and it just ruins everything? Or, oh my gosh, they've been gone for so long. What's going to happen? And people get stuck inside of their heads. Whereas the heart allows you to trust that connection and trust that knowing, but to allow you to communicate the feelings, where it's not thoughts inside of your head. It's that space of saying, I'm coming from this centered area, this centered place inside of me, and I want to be able to share with you my passions. I want to be able to share with you my fears, and I want to just have open and honest communication. And the heart communicates on levels outside of language, but allowing that to come from your heart is the place that gives you the ability to actually just say, like, hey, I've had this experience in the past and I love you and I don't want to project this onto you. I just kind of want to talk this out so that you know where I'm at. So if I get strange, if I go weird, this is what's going on, and maybe you can help me work through this. Just a simple conversation like that allows for a whole other world of possibilities to unfold inside of a relationship. And most of us don't have it. And it's because most people come from this thought of, I've got to just like put on a face and I got to look like it doesn't bother me and I don't care. Or if I'm going to talk to somebody about it, I have to make sure it's positioned perfectly and I say the right things. And it just gets muddled. And what happens is, and this is what I love about having this more masculine perspective inside of this, especially with men, they've been taught to step outside of that heart space.
Mhm.
And that's what I find is so fascinating, is this difficulty in communication between men and women. Because I find women are more open to expressing that, more open to that level of connection, where men are taught they have to be stoic, they have to not feel and be this like rock. And there's a time when being the rock is really good, but what what I find is the biggest difficulty inside of a relationship is that ability to have open and honest communication. And that's what makes things last forever or die, because there's this, I'm coming from like my headspace and I'm thinking about it and I don't know what to do and I'm over analyzing and creating stories, and it just allows for somebody to literally change the frequency that they're on. And that blending of hearts is where we come from co-creation. It's this place where when two people come together and that electromagnetic field or heart or energy starts to exchange with each other, there's this beautiful balance of these two frequencies aligning. And I like to look at it almost as if you guys are creating on a screen together. And the moment you feel that you're separate or you have to do things or fix yourself first or anything like that, you start to change that frequency and the magic's lost because you're so caught up in the thoughts and the analyzing that it doesn't allow for that open and honest communication. And so one of my favorite things, and the Heart Math Institute talks about it all the time, but just taking your hands and placing them on your heart and just breathing a few deep breaths. And this moment of calm comes over when you realize you can feel that heartbeat and you start to reconnect with that heart. And anytime I go into a conversation, even before this connection here, just sitting here and placing my hands on my heart, tuning back into that place of love, of centeredness, of just open and authentic expression, allows for the magic to unfold again. It allows for the life to just flow through and that expression to be so natural. And this is what helps to have those difficult conversations where maybe in the past you've been hurt or you've been hurt a few times and there's that lack of trust inside. And being able to drop into that heart space and to say, look, this isn't you, but this is something that I'm carrying and healing right now. And I want you to be aware of it because sometimes I need to do this healing on my own, but sometimes I need you to like come and hold me, comfort me, talk to me, be open with me, help me to process these things. And I'll let you know when I need that alone time and when I need that time to process. And that level of honesty is what creates powerful and long-lasting relationships because we're coming from this place of like, I'm choosing you, I'm fully present here with you, and all I want is for us to just be able to connect in the most authentic and honest way. And these are the things that may come up to prevent me from that connection. And I want you to know that I understand that it's not you. And I'm working through this. And just receiving that, just having a partner that's open enough to tell you these things and to communicate that truth changes everything. It allows for life to just be like, okay, like I've got those things too. And I'm going to need you to like maybe help me sometimes as well through this. And here are the ways that you can show up that are going to really speak to my heart and my love language and allow me to truly be seen, felt, and heard. And this is the thing that I find is so missing in a lot of modern day connections. We live in this instant gratification, trade up for the next model kind of world because it's all at our fingertips. And the moment we kind of go back into that place of like, do I want something long lasting? Or am I just looking for the next model? Even having that conversation from the very beginning of I'm not looking for a long-term thing allows for a long-term relationship of some sort to form, right? Because you're honest, you're open, there's no cards being like held back. And that's the true wisdom in these beautiful long-lasting relationships.
Yes. I love the honesty and authenticity and being real about, our triggers and the struggles and just being able to share it a lot of times that helps to heal it, it facilitates healing, to know that you're safe, right? And so that's what kind of comes up for me when I think about being in these relationships with people and being willing to go into your heart. I think it requires a lot of vulnerability to be in our heart. And so a lot of times we might close ourselves off, even unconsciously, even with the people we love the most, with our deepest relationships. And then definitely in ones that we're, people we're not as intimate with, we're even more likely to put that wall up. So what would you say to kind of help people have the courage to be vulnerable, to know that it's safe to be in our hearts? Because I feel like we've been taught that it's not safe. And I've even noticed, my own pattern of when I talk about something that I know is emotional for me. Sometimes I will talk about it from my head instead of my heart, so I don't have to feel it. And then there's a disconnect, and I'm not really being as fully present as I could with the experience. So how can we know that it's safe to be there and it's okay to be vulnerable and to build that trust in our relationships with others and ourselves too, right?
This is a fantastic question. And I think it's one of the most potent things that once we can like overcome it, our worlds radically change.
Mhm.
And it took me a really long time to understand this. And when I was younger, I had my grandfather pass away, and I took it really hard. It was a lot to process. I was probably in grade 4. And so I was relatively young, and I just remember coming home from school, and I got off the school bus, and I was like, oh, like just sending like positive affirmations to my grandpa. I was like, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. And I walked in the door, and my mom is usually there to greet me at the door, and she wasn't. And I like walked in and turned and went into the living room, and I just seen her crying on the couch, and my entire world dropped. I just literally felt everything just fade away. And it was just like this like noise, this buzzing. I couldn't hear anything. I dropped my backpack. I ran to my room, and I didn't know what to do. And my mom came in, and my dad was away at work at that point. And she like sat with me and gave me a big hug. And she's like, do you want to talk about it? Like, it's okay. And I was like, no, like I'm fine, and immediately was just like hiding, trying to be strong for my mom. And I thought about that so often. And there was this story later on when my dad got home that he told me. And he's like, we never know how long our lives are going to be, or the people around us when their time is. And he said, this is why it's so important for us to be honest and to share what's real for us, because it might be that last moment. And I had shared like so much love with my grandpa the last time I saw him in the hospital. And my dad started to tell me the story of his grandfather. And he went over to he was staying at his grandpa's house for the weekend, and they were having this conversation, and he wanted to go out and hang out with friends. And he was like, no, like you haven't done your homework, you haven't done the things, you're not allowed to leave. And he's like, F you, I hate you, like blah blah blah, like I never want to talk to you again, and ran out the door and went and hung out with his friends. And he came home when the street lights came on and walked in, and his grandpa wasn't there. And his mom was coming to pick him up, and she says he passed away. He had a heart attack and died on the way to the hospital. And it just haunted him over and over that those were the last words that he shared. Those were the last things that he said. And that stuck with me so deeply, because growing up, I was so guarded. I was the kid that was so empathic and highly sensitive that I would cry, and I'd be so embarrassed because the teacher would get mad at me and I would cry. And I was like, oh, like, I don't want to cry. Like none of the other guys cry, like men don't cry, things like this. And I was in this heart space and constantly like thinking from this heart space, and I didn't even realize it. And so I started to go into this like guarded mode. I started to work out and be stronger and like find ways to not cry. And it wasn't until I found my like first love, you would say, that I realized I couldn't connect. I couldn't express how I was feeling. I literally went through and rigorously like hardened up my feelings. And I felt guarded. I felt like if I shared that I love them, that they'll probably leave because it'll be too much and too early and not the right time and this and that. And I started to realize that taking the steps to make small truths, small pieces of sharing what's real for you allowed me to slowly build up to this place where I could see by sharing something as small as like, hey, like I actually really enjoy spending time with you, to being like, wow, like I've never really felt this way about somebody before. This is really cool. Not saying the words, but these like really small micro steps of truth and authenticity. I started to notice that as I would share these little things, I would realize that, wow, like that was safe. Like I didn't get hurt, nothing bad happened. And it allowed me to consistently open up a little bit more and a little bit more to others. And that led me to everything that was bottled up that I wanted to say, but that was too scared to, I would release in my journal. And this, like, just this cathartic feeling of the words and feelings and emotions being put out somewhere allowed me to get to this place where it wasn't like this, hey, I just need to tell you something. These are all of my feelings and this is everything, and scare them away. It was like I could see it, and I would notice that as those feelings were coming out into my journal, that I could recognize them. And I would go through and say, wow, like this is really beautiful. I'm going to share this little piece of that today because this is leading towards me being more authentic. And I would pull out these like truths that I wanted somebody to feel because I felt like it was a good representation of what was important to me without exploding or sharing things or going too deep too fast. It was like, wow, like this would actually be a really beautiful thing to share. And I allowed myself to share that. And I could feel as like this light came through the cracks of the cement around my heart. And slowly this wall started to crumble down into the point where I realized, wow, I'm back to being so open. And then that led me to the second part of like, how do I like stay feeling safe in this moment? Right now that I'm open, how can I stay keeping safe? And that's where I discovered having boundaries and knowing your boundaries and knowing your non-negotiables that you can actually create and enforce in your life and around you allows you to stay in that authentic space without ever overstepping or without ever being too vulnerable to the point where it's almost painful. I'm sure we've all had that like moment where we've shared something or we've posted something on Facebook and we had the vulnerability hangover after. We're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And so just having like knowing and creating strong boundaries in our life is the thing that allows us to truly express, but to know where our limits are of like where we're comfortable with who we're comfortable. And recognizing that if somebody's overstepping our boundaries on the outside, the most heart-centered thing that we can do is really enforce those boundaries or choose to not be in their presence if they're not respecting that. And it's this beautiful kaleidoscope effect of like, if I take the guard off of my heart and my vulnerability and I enforce it with like these mental constructs on the outside, not only can I feel safe and authentic, it actually allows for a container to be built where others can be safe and authentic in my presence as well. And that was a complete game changer.
Yes. I love that because the heart's electromagnetic field is a lot stronger than the brain's. And when we are rooted in our heart and vibrating love, it's sending it out to all those who come in contact with us. So not even just our intimate relationships, but everybody we meet, we have this opportunity to make these even micro connections on the daily from our heart. So I love that. And another thing I was just really excited to have you here as our male speaker to give the male perspective because, like you mentioned earlier, men are taught not to feel or not to show feelings, to be that rock. And even our society as a whole, we're kind of more masculine oriented. And so I love the work that you're doing with the masculine and feminine and balancing those energies. So I wondered if you have anything that you would like to say to the men that might be watching this of how they can live more in their hearts and that it's safe to do so, and that it's you're still a man when you live in your heart, and because there's so much power in the love and in all the men's hearts, and I love seeing men in their hearts. I think there's nothing more beautiful than that. It's just so yeah. What would you have to say about that?
This is a fantastic question. And I think the most important thing to recognize as men is we've been sold this reverse truth, is that in order to be strong, we have to not feel. And even in times of like grief and worry, we have to like compose ourselves because we have to be the strong ones. And strength in itself, like you just shared, is like actually coming from that space of vulnerability. It's actually allowing ourselves to feel those emotions and feel those feelings from a grounded place. And this is the difference. This is like the biggest difference that makes the difference in life, is like the more as men we can tap into our emotions and allow ourselves to ground into them, ground into the feelings, ground into everything that's coming from that heart space. It actually allows us to have more composure, to have more confidence, to have more self-esteem, to have more influence in the world, because we're actually coming from this space where we're not letting emotions build up until they explode. And that's what happens, is in our minds, we come to this place where we think that we have to be stoic, but that stoicism is going to like break down at some point. You can only stop the floodgates for so long before eventually it's going to explode. And this is what comes into the level of toxic masculinity, where now we've denied our emotions so far that we feel like we have to manipulate somebody else, or we feel like we just get so frustrated that we just explode in this, like, not even like anger, but like aggression. And then it pushes people away more, which validates why we have to hold in our feelings and deny our feelings, which then creates bigger walls, which create even bigger bursts of aggression or mania or whatever you want to call it, because we're not allowing for the natural flow to come through. And so true strength, true power, true masculinity is being able to own your emotions and to be able to transmute them, to be able to express them in healthy and positive ways with those that you love, even if it's people that you just meet. It's being able to share and to hold that space. And if we look at, being specifically for our male audience, the alpha male is the person that people can feel safe around, people can trust, and people can like really look up to. And that comes from a place that they have themselves in so much check. They're able to like really ground their feelings, express their feelings, and like own it to the point that others can feel that same level of capacity, whether male or female. Like the difference between a group of guys coming around and talking about video games or sports or whatever versus a bunch of guys that are coming around and looking to like further develop themselves and their lives and the things that they're doing and their goals and passions is astronomical, because we've been sold this idea as men that the alpha male is that stoic, hard, non-feeling person. We see it in movies all the time, right? They're the badass. They're the person that's like, I don't care about anything, the James Dean, you know? And the reality behind it is even James Dean cried, right? Like all of these things, the emotions were still there. And once we can get to that place where owning those emotions and allowing those things to flow actually makes us a safe person, because now people aren't guessing. Now people aren't like, do they like me? Do they not like me? Are they angry? They just have this blank stare. What's happening? Did I say something wrong? It creates the ultimate sense of safety, which allows them to be that person that others want to be around, both male and female, because it's allowing other people to feel safe in your presence and people to feel like they can express and to be themselves in your presence is the most badass thing there is, right? Like that person that you meet for the first time at an event or wherever you are, and you're like, oh my God, they were so cool. Like we just started talking about aliens and like the heart space and like energy and all of these things. And I just felt like I didn't have to hold anything back, that they weren't judging me, that I could just be the silly, crazy, weird me that I am. And I felt safe around that. And that's the truth that I wish that every single male understood, is that the more you can take those steps to open up and to be seen and heard, and on the other side of that is everything that you want. It's the ability to show up in your workspace and do amazing work because now your clients actually feel like they can trust you, right? It's going out and seeing your friends and being like, hey, like let's do something like that's like really pushes us, you know, like let's like develop, let's stop, let's put down the video game controllers and like actually go out. Maybe we go for like a run or a workout or a hike, and while you're sitting there immersed in nature, you're just like, wow, like this just like really inspires me for this that I want in my life. And it just gives permission for people to dream, permission for people to say like, oh, actually we can have this conversation. I feel the same way. That's really cool. What if we like co-created that together? Now the dreams can become more possible and can come to life faster because wow, like other people agree with me. And if I didn't share my feelings, if I didn't share the truth that was in my heart, they would have never known. And so you can have everything that you've ever wanted by tapping back into that. And that's really, I think, the key to having even a relationship where your partner actually like loves you and is so faithful and so honest, because they feel safe and they feel heard and they feel like there's nothing sketchy, there's nothing weird. Like, hey, you can have the password on my phone because I'm not hiding anything, right? Like I'm fully present. And I think that that's like the coolest thing is, as men, the more that we can tap into ourselves and understand the divine feminine, right? Understand what it means to flow, what it means to allow life to happen, to have intuition, to have feelings and emotions and to express them, the more we actually become holistic as a man. And that is like, I think the like alpha male of the future is this like powerful, holistic, safe space of creation and structure and strength.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here, Greg, and for sharing your heart's wisdom. Such wonderful words for our viewers. Is there, for anyone who wants to connect with you, learn more about your work, how can they find you? What are some things that you're offering? Tell us about that.
Thank you. Yes. So you can find me on Instagram as Greg Biggs, Facebook as well. If somebody's wanting to go deeper, has a healing business or has a spiritual business or even a yoga business, and are looking to develop that to like attract your soulmate clients and to really like come inside of that sphere, we have tons of resources. We have challenges, books, and weekly trainings inside of our Facebook group, Conscious Coach Collective. But I'm always open to a heart-to-heart chat. And so I think that's the most important, is even if you're feeling stuck, is I will very gladly step into a space to connect, to see your vision, to share your vision, and to see how you can take those next steps to really like actualize it even more. And so you can find that on my website, gregbiggs.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you to our viewers for being here. Until next time, from my heart to yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now let me see how we